I had been working at the call center for just under a month, my shift starting at midnight and running until the sun peeked through the horizon. The job was simple enough: handle customer queries, maintain the script, and keep the calls flowing. But there was something about those late-night shifts that felt off. The office was quiet, too quiet. The only sound was the low hum of computer monitors and the occasional creak of the building settling. It was the kind of silence that made every small noise seem unnervingly loud. But with all those subtleties, I badly needed the money to save up for my wedding. My fiancé and I aren't getting younger, you see. Met in our late 20s. We spent almost 3 years traveling all of Asia. Just this year, we decided to finally get married and settle down. That motivated me to find a second job, and it eventually landed me in this call center, as the schedule is very flexible and pay was fair for where I was located. Last night, something happened that I still can't fully explain. It started with a whisper of a rumor that had been circulating among the older agents. They spoke of a worker who had died at their desk months ago, supposedly of a heart attack. The story was always told in hushed tones, like it was a secret too dark to be spoken aloud. I tried to shake off the unease, but it lingered like a cold draft. As I settled into my desk, I noticed an unusually cold chill in the air. The office's air conditioning was always set to an uncomfortable low, but tonight it felt different, more biting, more invasive. I brushed it off, attributing it to my tiredness. Around 3 a.m., when the office was at its emptiest, I took a short break. I stepped out of the cubicle to grab a cup of coffee from the break room, a small reprieve from the endless cycle of calls. The hallway was dimly lit, the flickering fluorescent lights casting strange shadows on the walls. It was then that I saw something unsettling. There, in the corner of the hallway, was an old photograph taped to the wall. It was worn and yellowed with age, the edges curling up. I approached it hesitantly, my heart pounding in my chest. The photograph depicted a group of call center employees from years ago. I recognized a few faces, but one stood out. A woman with hollow eyes and an unsettling wide smile. I tried to dismiss it as a prank or an old piece of office decor, but as I returned to my desk, a shiver ran down my spine. The temperature in the room had dropped even further, and the low hum of the air conditioning seemed to have intensified. Now a low, almost imperceptible growl. The calls became erratic too. Every now and then, a call would come through with nothing but static on the line. But it wasn't just static. It was accompanied by a low, mournful wail that seemed to come from the depths of the earth. I could almost hear the faint echoes of a heartbeat pounding in the background. As the night dragged on, my fatigue began to set in. My eyes grew heavy, and I struggled to keep them open. At one point, I looked up from my screen and saw her, the woman from the photograph, standing at the dark corner of the room. Only her head down to her chest was illuminated slightly. She wasn't in the photograph anymore. She was real, her black and hollow eyes fixated on me with an empty, soulless gaze. They appeared hollow to me, but I felt that she was directly staring at me. To add to the horror, she seemed to be grinning from chin to chin, not trying to be silly, but at that moment, I randomly thought she smiled like Jim Carrey's The Grinch, only in a sinister way, with a strong and potent evil intent. Funny how my brain works in this type of moment. In her eyes was a look of madness and deep sadness at the same time, somewhat asking the question, why me? It was the oddest spectacle to see, a weird mix of emotions in the way she stared at me. The wails she produced sounded diabolical, a cacophony of crying and giggling, but ended with harsh crying. I assumed maybe she died confused and had no time to process that she's gone, forever stuck in a state of illness with no way to escape. A cruel fate, I must say. I rubbed my eyes, blinking furiously to clear the image. When I looked again, she was gone from the spot where the light illuminated, but the feeling of being watched remained, as though her gaze was still burning into my back. The image of those hollow eyes will forever be etched into my brain. How it stared at me, how it terrified me, how it will horrify my unborn children. Around 5 a.m., just as the first light of dawn began to seep into the office, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A fellow agent, one who had been working the same shift as me, was slumped over at his desk. His face was pale, and his breathing was shallow. I rushed over, my heart pounding, only to find that he was lifeless. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead as I realized he had suffered a heart attack, just like the rumors had said. I staggered back, my mind racing, my breathing deeply hoarse. The photograph, the cold spots, the eerie wails, it all made sense now. The woman in the photo wasn't just a ghost, she was a harbinger, and her presence here was no accident. As the emergency services arrived and the office was filled with commotion, I noticed something chilling. The photograph was gone, vanished from its place on the wall. I'm not even sure if there really was a photograph on that wall. But one thing is clear, I don't think I'll be staying at this job much longer. I'm just probably gonna wait for this month's pay, then I'm getting the fuck out of here. Whatever is haunting this place is not finished with us, and I don't plan on finding out what happens when it decides that I'm its next call. Edit. 2 days after that incident, my neck feels a bit tight, and my chest would hurt at random times when I breathe. Also, I feel lightheaded. Might it be from sitting too long, or something else?